welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to be introducing to you Taylor Kenney. I've been watching her on YouTube for a while now. She is definitely a member of the prepping community. She has some definite thoughts on that. And so Taylor, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the Homestead.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. Hi, everyone. Yes, that is correct. So I originally am from a rural town in Southern Oregon where prepping actually wasn't even a term. It was just a way of life. Moved to a big city and realized, oh my goodness, we need prepping here more than anywhere. And I got really passionate about it, really excited about it. And that's what actually led me to financial preparedness as well. And once I started peeling back the layers of the onion of everything that's going on in our society and our economy, I just was hooked and I couldn't get enough. And that's what led me here to ITM and to sharing my passion for truth and news with everyone else out there.
Oh yeah, we got some things on the lineup, man. It's just the world is kind of gone upside down. And so there's been a whole lot of things in the news, and some of the things that I've been talking about on my channel when it comes to the economy, you really have your thumb on that pulse. And it seems like there's some disinformation out there, and we don't know what's really true anymore. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today. I want to start off by asking you about the banks. And I've been hearing a lot of talk out there, even on your channel, about how many banks are really at risk here of losing it all. The FDIC, is there really money there to back up? Every time you go into a bank, that little sticker's on the door there, right? So making us feel good about our money that's locked up inside. How many banks are really at risk here?
I mean, all of them. Yeah, I don't want to sound dramatic here, but I think it is important that we take this seriously. I mean, the FDIC, right? Like you said, they're the ones who are supposed to be protecting us. And they themselves came out last quarter with that report that I know made a lot of noise, that 63 banks were at risk of failure, along with over $500 billion of unrealized losses. I think a lot of people got caught up on that 63 banks that were at risk of failure. We know that the number is so much higher than that. That is just the tip of the iceberg. Ultimately, all of these banks are sitting on so many unrealized losses. And what I mean by that are that they got assets at a value that are worth less now than they were when they got them.
Right.
Look at commercial real estate, right? Anyone who drives by and sees vacant lots, empty office buildings, empty malls, we know that that is a ticking time bomb. Mortgage-backed securities are another one. We also have bonds. There's so much that these banks are sitting on. They just don't have the liquidity to support their depositors, which is what's really concerning for me, and I know for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, so I try to explain this to my audience in a way like, okay, so let's say you buy a home for $100,000 and the housing market collapses and now it's only worth $40,000. You still own the home, but that's a $60,000 unrealized loss. Now, let's just say for some reason, something happens in your life where you need money immediately and you now have to sell that home. That now becomes a realized loss that you took, and the banks are in the same situation.
That's a perfect way of describing it. That's exactly it. And for people out there who say, well, maybe those unrealized losses won't become realized, what would force them to have to make these losses realized? We already saw it. Silicon Valley Bank, that's exactly what happened to them. They had all of their liquidity tied up in bonds. They had some large depositors come in, make withdrawals. They had to sell those at a loss. And everyone looked around and realized, oh my goodness, these banks don't have nearly enough liquidity. That triggered a bank run, and that's exactly why we saw them collapse. So it does happen, and it's a scary thing.
I was watching your channel also on one of the other videos that was up, and they said it's definitely more than 63 banks. And so what do you think could be the thing that pushes some of these over the edge? What are we looking at? What are we looking for?
Well, we have quite a few ticking time bombs here. One of the big ones I like to talk about a lot is actually commercial real estate. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but regional banks too. This is something a lot of people have kind of I guess, a false sense of security. Well, is it regional banks? Is it just the big banks? It's all banks. Regional banks actually hold about 80% of all commercial real estate debt in the country. A lot of people don't realize that. And many of these commercial real estate loans are maturing by the end of this year, the majority of them actually. When those loans mature, It's at that point where the banks are going to have to be forced to realize a lot of these losses. That could be a huge trigger.
Yeah, that's just crazy. It's scary, but it's actually happening. So, all right, interest rates remain high, which is
Mhm.
deflationary. They can't lower the interest rates because that becomes inflationary. What is it you see for our future? More of a deflationary 1930s, there is no money in the system anymore, or something like Zimbabwe, where a loaf of bread costs $100 trillion. What is it you see most likely?
To be honest, I personally see inflation continuing in a hyperinflation situation.
Yeah.
I would say that that is my gut because of the way that we're spending. I mean, we're just shy of $35 trillion US debt right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a situation where we're going to slow down that spending. I think that the United States dollar is going to continue to lose its value. I think inflation is going to keep going through the roof. And we're going to be at a situation where the US dollar is exactly what you just held up. It's going to be not worth the kindling to light your fire, unfortunately.
And I've made the point too on my channel, and let me know if you agree or not. But
Yeah,
I think we live in a culture where no one's left behind, everyone gets a trophy, and that sort of culture feeds into this whole mentality. Well, if these banks do become immediately in trouble, we're going to bail them out because we don't want to make anyone mad. We don't want to rock the boat. We want to make sure no one's left behind. Everyone gets a trophy. And so we're going to go through this printing process where we make sure everyone's good because we know the FDIC does not have the money in the kitty to make it work, to make everything sound.
totally. I mean, I think that's a really good point because there have been people who I've heard say, well, what's the big deal if
Mhm.
banks fail? What's the big deal, right? They're just going to get bailed out anyway. Everything will be fine. But ultimately, those people don't realize that if we're talking about the type of bank failures on the scale that we're talking about, the
Mhm.
amount of cash that would have to be printed to bail them out, the amount of debt that would be added, the dollar in your wallet is going to be worth nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lose-lose, really.
Yeah. Yeah. We've already lost so much buying power just in the last decade. It's amazing. And they say inflation's getting better, but come on. I'm like, we know you go to the grocery store and things getting smaller, and that's inflation. And
Yeah.
prices stay the same or go higher. That's inflation. Inflation's not getting better. It may be getting a little bit slower, the amount of it's increasing, but it's
Mhm.
still increasing and things are still getting smaller. I mean, companies, they're not gouging customers. I own a couple companies, and I'm always trying to figure out ways to cut my cost, to
Mhm.
provide a quality product at a cheaper cost. And so I understand that, you go to the grocery store, for example, and you're getting lesser quality foods because they're putting in more things you can't pronounce in the ingredients list because it's cheaper to do that than rather use whole food ingredients. It's not stopping. It's only increasing.
Absolutely. I think I saw one of your videos and you had that image of, was it like Susie Q, you said, with the grocery cart from back in the day, full loaded to the brim. I mean, you'd be lucky. You can't even walk out of the grocery store with what you can carry in your arms for a
Yeah.
reasonable rate. And to your point, too, the ingredient lists are getting worse and worse. The quality is getting worse. We know shrinkflation is happening. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can tell us all day long that inflation's getting better, but to your point, maybe it's slowing, but it's not improving.
No, it's
Absolutely not.
not. It's not. And there's a lot of things coming down. There's a lot of snowballs coming down and gaining steam as they roll down the hill. So, all right, something that you've talked about quite a bit is CBDCs.
Mm,
Powell has said we're not doing that. Okay.
right.
Okay. Meanwhile, all the evidence out there points that absolutely they're going to do this.
Mhm.
Um, could it be that Powell's telling the truth in terms of either, well, it won't be a decision by me, or number two, I won't be here when that happens?
That's interesting. I think, I mean, first, as far as CBDCs, whether they're coming or not, right? Let me ask you, if 130 countries plus
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
pursuing a
Yeah.
CBDC, we already have them live in China and Russia and other places. Do you think that the United States is going to be left behind and
No.
not have a, no, of course.
Mhm.
Now, the thing that's concerning to me about how hard they're pushing this narrative that we're not going to have a CBDC and that's not going to happen is that you can't prepare for something if you don't see it coming. And I think there's a lot of us out there who are that we know what's coming, but there are a lot of people who are saying, absolutely not. It's already been decided we're not having one. And I think that's part of the bigger plan, to be honest,
Right.
whether or not that's because he won't be here, whether or not that's because they're trying to push it through in a way that doesn't raise alarm bells. That's really what I think it is. I think that's the reason why they're saying so consistently that we won't have one, is because they don't want anyone to get out in front of it. They want it to be a situation where it happens and it happens quickly.
Well, I think CBDC already carries with it a connotation of negativity. And so that alone right there, they're saying, no, 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 no. But they can call it something else, but it's still going to be the same thing. It's still going to be a fiat currency backed up by nothing at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about, again, we were just talking about the US dollar, right? And its decline. I think a lot of naysayers will say, well, they would be fools to get rid of something they're making money on. I think that's true up until a certain point. When it no longer works, when it's no longer serving, that's when something new is ushered in. And I think we're seeing a lot of this groundwork being laid right now, too, outside of even bank failures. Talk about bank closures. I think we're losing about 1,000 bank branches per year right now. We're moving away from cash. These are all trends we're seeing to get more used to a fully digital society and cashless society.
Right. I totally agree. So, with that being said, okay, CBDCs are going to happen. This is that cake is baked, as I like to say. What about Saudi Arabia? There's been a lot of news about Saudi Arabia and the death of the petrodollar. And some people out there on YouTube land are saying, oh, this is just a bunch of nothing burger. And some people are saying, no, there really was an agreement. The Kissinger was over there. And so what's really going on with that?
What I would like to preface is that I think that there are a lot of people who will say it's the end of the petrodollar and it's happening today, or it happened last weekend, or this is the thing that's going to just bring everything down.
Right.
I personally don't think it happens like that. I think it happens over time. I think that there are continual nails in the coffin, you could say. I don't think it's one thing. That's my stance on it. I do believe that we can look at facts. We know that Saudi Arabia is joining Project Enbridge, which is from the BIS, the Bank for Banks, right? The Central Bank for Banks.
Yeah, we know that.
We know that. That is a fact. We know that they are in talks with China. We know that they are exploring their options, right? We know all of this. Doesn't mean that as of a certain date, the dollar is dead. No, but we know that they are moving away and that it is only a matter of time. So I think it's more gradual. I take a little bit more of a conservative approach on that one.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Yeah, so it was kind of hard just trying to decipher all the information that was out there. And yeah, I could not find an actual date for an agreement that took place. But yeah, you've been watching them distance themselves from the US for a while now with some of the deals they're making.
Time.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, so that's kind of going down that road. So what do you say? I'm looking at my notes because there's some things I just wanted to make sure we covered while I had you on here. What do you say in response to the argument that you can't eat gold or silver? Because as I've been pushing this throughout the years, and I definitely tell people, I think I've got you. Yeah, I've got this is a Roosevelt silver dime and a 2,000-year-old denarius. And it shows you 2,000 years of consistency. I've made the point in my videos in the past that you have in the Bible, I believe it's Matthew chapter 20, where a man was paid basically a silver denarius for a day's wage. And then you had that movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, Far and Away. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. They're working in a chicken factory for a dime a day. That's 2,000 years of consistency of what is a day's wage. Okay. And only in the last really 130 years, 120 years has that consistency been broken. So I think that the correction is guaranteed at some point back to that long term of consistency. But people will always fight back with me and they'll say, Zach, when it all goes down and we know hard times are coming, that's pretty much clear at this point. I can't eat my gold and silver. What do you say to that?
I mean, I'm glad you said that. As someone who's been in the prepping community for a while, I have heard that many times myself. I think that it's interesting because everyone's got their own rhyme and reason. Everyone's got their own strengths and interests. But I think anyone who is focused on preparedness knows that you are continually growing and expanding. So my approach, yes, we can talk more about gold and silver specifically too and sound money. But when we think about it through this lens, for me, maybe you're focused on defense. Maybe you should focus more on food preservation as well. Maybe you're focused over here and you want to focus on first aid. Financial preparedness and sound money should be part of that conversation as well. It should be part of what you're preparing, because the idea is that you never know exactly what's going to happen. And the more prepared you are and the more ways that you're prepared, it's going to be better. And I think everyone's had that moment where you think, wow, I wish I had started this sooner. I'm so glad that I'm doing this. I'm so glad it's already come in use. It's already this and that. I only wish I'd started this sooner. The same goes for sound money. I mean, anyone who purchased, let's say, $10,000 worth of gold in 2019, that would be worth almost $16,000 today.
Yeah.
If you had $10,000 of US dollars in your bank account, it would be worth almost what, 8,000, maybe a little bit less today because we've lost 20% or more of our purchasing power since 2020.
It's just going down the drain.
Right. And it's like a lot of it. And I mean, again, everyone's different, everyone's situation's different, but ultimately, when we think about what's going to come next, it is just such a no-brainer for me to understand that you want to protect yourself in that way too. You want to protect your wealth.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to protect yourself in so many things, aspects of life. And I think so much of the prepper community sees, like, I mean, what's one of the first things they go to? Firearms. Okay, we're gonna use firearms to protect ourselves because that's something it's glamorous, it's sexy. Hollywood portrays it in a certain way.
Right.
And then you've got things like growing food in gardens and canning and all this other so many other things, and people can understand that, they can comprehend that. But I think they have a harder time with finances because this is just something that is concentrated in our school system today. We don't really talk about how economics work. And if we do, it's on a very broad, Keynesian, window of how economies work. And we don't have a good grip on that. So not to mention, we just know this is money. Okay. Our generations today. So that when you start talking about something that they're not familiar with as money, they have this, cloud that goes over their eyes. They can't see it.
Yeah.
And so how do they even begin? Do you mean I can actually order that through the mail and get it delivered? Yes, you can do that. They have that ability.
Definitely. And I think honestly, the first question that people should be asking themselves, right, are what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? And I think it's funny too with preparedness. It's a never-ending journey, right? Anyone who doesn't know, like I'll talk to someone and they go, "Oh, well, when are you done?" Well, you're never done, right? It never ends. You're always growing and expanding. And the same goes for financial preparedness as well, because it's just another piece of the puzzle.
Right. I totally agree. So, the other day I was going to make this point to you too, and just kind of get your feedback on it. The other day I have so when I come home from going out to town or whatever, I always have this little thing by the door. That's where I put all my change. So if I get change when I'm checking stuff out, I put it in there. And so every once in a while I go through that. And so the other day I went through that and I pulled out, all the copper pennies, the actual copper pennies. And I pulled out the nickels because nickels are actually made with nickel and copper. And everything else, I just threw it back in there and I'll take it to the bank and exchange those for, more of these. But I saved these. And it dawned on me as I set those aside, I have done something that people have been doing for literally thousands of years. And that's Gresham's law. Can you explain that to my audience and what is it that I have done when doing that?
Yeah, definitely. So Gresham's law is bad money drives out good money. That's the simple thing of it. So let's say, to your example, you had two coins. One is half nickel, half silver. One is full silver, but the United States government says both are an equal unit. Well, you as an individual are going to understand that one actually has more value than the other. You're going to hoard the one that has more value and spend the one that has less, because why wouldn't you? That's a smart decision, right? So inevitably, bad money is circulating more and the good money is driven out. It's exactly actually what we saw with the US dollar and gold, right? When they were convertible, a lot of the world believed they were the same for a period of time, right? Until one day they realized, oh, the United States doesn't have enough gold to back all these dollars in circulation. What happened? The gold disappeared. The dollar stayed in circulation. Bad money drove out good money. But it only lasts that way for so long until eventually there is a hyperinflationary situation. There is a collapse, or society in general comes together and says, we no longer feel this way. And that's when it actually acts in reverse. And that's, I think you had, was it Zimbabwe? You had a currency you held up earlier, right? That's when suddenly the bad money disappears and it's not worth anything anymore. And the people who hoarded the good money, those are the ones who come out on top.
Exactly. I love studying history, and I see this all throughout, the Roman records and going all the way back to the Roman Empire, where where Roman emperors would try or decide to put less silver content. And
Devalue.
yeah, and so the
Yeah.
people knew that, and they started taking those silver coins out and hoarding them. And today we find them in hoarding caches when archaeologists dig them up and stuff like, oh, why did they save these? Oh, it's because during that time, these had more silver in them than the other ones did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so interesting. Yeah.
It's happening right now again. You can't, you used to be able to go to the bank and find get a roll of quarters and maybe find a silver quarter in one. Now that's gone. You can't
No.
find that anymore
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they've long been taken out. So all right, talk to me about ITM. You're over there and you are, how can someone, how easy is it to walk someone through the process of getting savings that they have into something physical that they can feel confident about?
It's very easy. I think the thing that I would say to everyone, and the reason why I personally work at ITM, is that there's a lot of people out there who just push people through, right?
Mhm.
Oh, buy gold, buy silver, you need this, buy it as much as you can. That is not what we're about. We're about education here, and you can read it too. If you go online, I mean, look ITM up, you'll see it's not,
Mhm.
oh, I'm so glad I have this X, Y, and Z coin. It's, I learned so much.
Yeah, right.
So the first question we're always going to ask again is what do you know? What are your goals? If someone calls in and says, I'm concerned about CBDCs, I don't really know anything about them. I just heard about it on this YouTube channel I was watching, then great. That's a different conversation than someone who says, hey, I've been a fan of sound money for years and I'm looking to
Right.
expand. Very different conversations. So first things first is everyone that we have here, we have people who've been with us for 20, 30 years. I mean, basically since the company started 28 years ago, everyone is very passionate about all of these topics and educating and making sure that whatever people are out there buying is right for them. Because at the end of the day, everything has a different purpose. So it really comes down to what your goals are and what you want to learn and how you want to protect yourself.
Excellent. Excellent. And there is information below. I have a link down there below you can find, and then I'll click you to take you over there, and then you can start that process. So there's something else I wanted to ask you. So I love, ever since high school, I've loved learning famous quotes. It's again part of my affinity for studying history. And I learned long ago the quote, apparently, because some people are disputing it now, Mayor Rothschild, when he said, "Give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." And it was a fun quote to learn. Yeah, it all intertwines with the ideas of gold and silver and sound money and all that, and how the central banks kind of ruined everything. But as it dawned on me, what it became more about was this centralization of power. Because I don't care who really makes the laws if I can control the money, because then I can control both. Right. And so it's this enormous amount of power, and, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Right. We all learned that quote. But then the other one that I learned back in high school was Sun Tzu, where he said, an evil man will burn his own nation to the ground in order to rule over the ashes. If there's such power in controlling a nation's money supply that it's so hard to give up, and we have evil men who would rather burn the country down than give up that sort of control, where do you see us in the next 10, 15 years? Where do you see our country?
I think this goes back, and this is why I think CBDCs are one of the biggest threats to us too, is that I think personally we're at this point in time in the cycle where it's just everything is being squeezed out of it. And we're going to continue to see that. We're going to continue to see rampant spending. We're going to see this inflation. We're already seeing it, right? We're going to see things continue to get worse and just squeezing everything they can out of it. And when there's nothing left to squeeze, that's when the new era, a new tool of power and control will be ushered in, central bank digital currencies, starting the cycle all over again. No one's going to give up their power. Absolutely. Of course not. Why would they? They're just going to find a new way to control. That's my thoughts on it.
Excellent. That's excellent. Excellent viewpoint. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here. I wanted to keep the video short and consumable for everybody, but I think I've asked you questions. I'd like to be able to get you back on at some point, if possible. There's definite news items that are always popping up, and I'd love to be able to get your thoughts on that, if possible, from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing out here, and thank you again for having me on.
All right, guys, leave a comment below. What are you guys doing? I mean, what do you think? I mean, What is going through your mind as you see all of this unfolding before you? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. I'll definitely take an interest in reading them. Also, check out our merchandise over at teespring.com. You can find our best-selling shirt, Stupid Should Hurt. If we had more hurt in this world, we'd have an awful, awful lot less stupid. See you next time at the Homestead. Bye. In the spring of 2024, Saudi Arabia ended the long-held practice of requiring its oil to be sold in U.S. currency. And recently, governments around the world have been repatriating their physical gold from Western banks, opting instead to hold that gold within their own borders. China, meanwhile, continues to set records in terms of stockpiling its physical gold reserves, while at the same time dumping billions in U.S. treasuries. All these instances can otherwise be called indicators. Indications that the world is readying itself to participate in trade that does not involve the United States or the dollar. And at home, our banks are showing signs of a deflationary collapse, in which case the FDIC does not have a fraction of the funds on hand to ensure you can get your money should your bank fail. On the other hand, they keep telling us inflation is getting under control, but for some reason, the prices we pay day to day keep going up and products we pay for keep getting smaller. I've put a link in the description below this video that will allow you to start the process to convert money you may have already saved into precious metals that you yourself can hold. You hold it, you own it. Throughout history, precious metals have always been accepted for goods and services, even in the most chaotic of economies and war-torn countries, dating all the way back to when Alexander the Great ruled the known world. Guys, we're over $35 trillion in debt. If you're concerned, I don't blame you. ITM Trading has a well-documented history of helping people put their money into physical metals that you hold. Again, if you hold it, you own it. Hit that link below and see how ITM Trading can help you get the ball rolling towards financial sustainability. The consultation is free and there's no pressure. They will show you your options based on your concerns and goals you have for the future. By doing this, you're safeguarding wealth just like people have done successfully for literally thousands of years. You are now part of that history. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the Homestead that we make here on the Homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait.